Hello, magical people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Lou, and ordinarily I do tarot card readings, either pick a card or readings for the collective. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about energetic hygiene. So you might be wondering, what is energetic hygiene? And that is going to be the first point that we go over, is what is energetic hygiene? The second point we're going to hit is why is energetic hygiene important? And then, of course, the third thing is we're going to go over some practical tips for improving your energetic hygiene and making life just hopefully a little bit easier as a result. That has been my experience. So, coming up, number one, what is energetic hygiene? And pardon me, I'm going to be referring to my notes because I need them. What is energetic hygiene? Well, first of all, we need to think about it in terms of what other kinds of hygiene are. So, for example, dental hygiene is having a good system. It's a practice of being aware of and maintaining your dental health. Sleep hygiene is being aware of, the practice of being aware of and maintaining your sleep health. Dietary hygiene is the practice of awareness of and maintenance of your nutritional requirements and your nutritional needs. So it's sort of similar in the same way, is that energetic hygiene is the practice of being aware of and maintaining your energetic field. So what's an energetic field? I think the easiest way for myself to think of these concepts is my pockets are annoying me. I like the idea of thinking of it as like our aura. You know, we all have an auric field that is larger than our physical body, so it surrounds us. It's not always the same size. It can be much smaller, it can be much bigger, but for the most part, it's sort of resting medium place is a couple few feet around us in all directions. So it's kind of like a bubble or an egg, are sort of helpful visualizations that some people have that sort of surrounds us equidistantly on all directions. So 2 feet in front, 2 feet behind, 2 feet above, 2 feet below, all within that. And within the contents of our aura is a lot of information. It's a lot more subtle energy than the energy that we experience in our physical body, so it's not quite as overt as somebody poking you on the shoulder or shaking your hand or giving you a hug or something like that, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't impact us. Like I said, it's just more subtle. Item number 2, which is why is it important? So it is my belief that the way we experience self colors the way that we interact with others and with the world around us at large. It's my further belief that being in a place where we are more in a place of being in core self, that we are then able to have better experiences. It's kind of sort of a similar idea as keeping your own cup full. And perhaps some people might like to think of their auric field as a giant cup that they are in the middle of, and the energy around us is the contents of the cup. There's lots of different metaphors for making this real for you in terms of visualizations. I personally have a preference for thinking of it like a bubble, an aura, an egg. That just works for me. Now, I want to say a couple of things here because I do think that it's important to, even though if we're trying to be in a place where we are more acting from a place of being in and surrounded by our own energy, that does not mean isolating. It does not mean disregarding others and others' feelings or others' possible reactions or responses to our actions and engagements with the world around us. It does not mean bypassing negative emotions. I'm not trying to imply that if you have a negative emotion, you can get that out of your energetic field and not have to deal with it. You could try. However, I think it very likely that the universe would just provide another opportunity to bring that same energy back into your field until you actually deal with it. So it's not bypassing negative emotions. It is not being self-centered in an arrogant kind of way, okay? It's more about being grounded and centered in self. And when we are operating from a place of being in our core self, and we often find that we're able to engage in the world around us with more kindness, more compassion, more genuine curiosity for things and people that are different from us and our own experiences. And this also allows us to be more present to the world around us. And when we are more present, we are also more able to see the beauty and the wonder that surrounds us all of the time. Because again, sometimes these things are subtle. It's not like being whacked over the head with a sparkle stick and having everything just being amazing and wonderful. But what it is about is being able to move through the world, moving through the world in general. As we engage with other people, we are always exchanging information. Sometimes that information is verbal, sometimes it is nonverbal, but we are always exchanging information. We're just basically bubbles, people in bubbles, bumping into other people's bubbles all of the time. And what sometimes happens is that when we are exchanging information, we will keep some of that information from an exchange in our system, and not being native energy to the system, it can sort of bog things down. So let me give an example here. So I'm having a fine day. I go to get a coffee, and the person behind the counter is rude to me. Now, there's lots of different ways I can take that information, and if I am not in a place of self where I'm largely surrounded by my own energy and feeling grounded and centered in my feeling of self, then what might happen is I will feel personally hurt by that rudeness. And even more, I may hang on to that energy, keep that energy of hurtness in my field, and then when I go to have an engagement with a coworker a couple of hours later, I might find myself being overly defensive because I'm still experiencing that hurt that I received earlier from the person at the coffee shop. It's not ideal. If, however, I am coming from a place of being grounded in a sense of self, then I can instead see that, well, geez, that person was rude. I didn't do anything rude to them. This doesn't have anything to do with me. Perhaps I oughtn't take it personally. And beyond that, if somebody was going to be rude to somebody for no reason, gosh, they must be having a real stinker of a day, and they must have a lot going on for them that they're not able to clear out of their energetic bubble to be in their own place of self. So you see how the difference there is nothing actually changed. Like, the rude comment was still made. I still noticed it. I still experienced it. But instead of holding on to that and incorporating that into my energetic field, I'm instead allowing it to move right back out of my energetic field, and that allows me to operate from a place of greater compassion, kindness, and curiosity. So that's the number two there. That's why it's important. It can really impact the way that you experience your day-to-day life. Sometimes it really just is in the perspective. Now, again, I'm not trying to indicate that if somebody does hurt your feelings, that you should just let it roll off your back and never give it another thought, and that's okay. That's not what I'm trying to apply. If somebody does hurt your feelings, and in that situation where somebody is rude to you, then it's okay for you to have that feeling of being a little hurt. It's okay for you to process that feeling of being a little hurt and being like, gosh, why does this random stranger saying something mean to me hurt so much? Oh, maybe it's pointing at that, this is an area where I could give myself some more assurance, like maybe they made a comment about, now I'm just really making stuff up. Maybe they made a comment about something that I was wearing. And, I could, if I were really hurt by that, I could then be like, okay, well, why did that hurt so much? Well, maybe that hurt so much because I'm not actually as confident as I could be about the way I show up in the world or about the way I move in the world. And so that random comment is feeling like it's hitting something a little bit closer to home. So, again, not an opportunity to bypass, instead, an opportunity to look at what makes you feel uncomfortable about it, acknowledge it for yourself. In this case, in this example, it would maybe be an opportunity for me to be like, all right, well, I don't want to have my feelings hurt just because somebody else is having a bad day. So instead, I think I'm going to take this information about how I can affect change in my own life by doing some exercises and having some more tools in my tool belt to improve my own sense of self-esteem. And then I can just let the rest of the experience go. It's over. It's done. It served its purpose. So you see how it can really make a big difference in the way being able to be aware of the energy that comes into our space and then knowing what to do with it, and the place from which we operate from initially, all of that can have a really big impact in the way that we just experience regular day-to-day life. So now, for the third part, number 3, practical tips that you can use to improve your energetic hygiene. Now, I want to start off by saying right off the top that this is a practice. This is not the sort of thing that you're like, oh, I'm going to clean my energetic field and my energetic field will be clean and pristine and forever and ever and ever for the rest of my life. That's just not the way it works. This is a practice. And make no mistake, there will be some things I have found that are stubborn to leave the field. These may be, the example I've been giving up to date is, or to this point, is the person who is rude to you when you're getting a coffee in the morning. Okay, that's a pretty minor example, and probably an example of something that's pretty easy to get out of your field. What might not be so easy are the deeper hurts or the traumas that we experienced. And those will be things that we will continually need to work to clean out of our field, or we will clean them out of our field only to have a situation come up that invites them back in by sort of re-triggering old traumas. So I don't want to, again, get into a place where I am advising people spiritually bypass in any way. That is just not how this works. This isn't an easy snap your fingers and it's done. I mean, it kind of is, but it also kind of isn't. So be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself. Remember that it is a practice and that some things won't be as sanguine about leaving your space. But having said that, the actual tips. Mindful self-care. Mindful self-care. So this can look different to all of us. This could show up in terms of giving ourselves, making sure that we're getting enough rest, making sure that we have some quiet time to journal or to contemplate or to meditate. All of these things are great mindful self-care. Taking care of our body, giving our body things that are good for it that also feel good. So maybe this would be a hot bath or a hot shower, or maybe if you are a person who really enjoys that feeling of exercise, maybe it's going for a run. It's something that will make you feel good and is also actually objectively good for you, and doing it in a mindful way where you're showing up with presence, where you're showing up with awareness. Also, I want you to remember that energy follows intention. So sometimes just being aware of the fact that we are carrying other people's energy around can help us to remove that energy just by the will of our intention. Another good way to be able to be aware of your energetic hygiene is by body awareness. And this one is really can be super powerful because there have been times, again, I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience. There have been times when I have been in a situation with people and for some reason there's tension, maybe there's somebody in the group who's arguing or there's some bickering going back and forth, and I will feel emotionally unaffected by it. Like, I won't feel like I'm caught into it. Perhaps I'm even the person who's trying to calmly act as a mediator in this position or this situation, and being like, oh, well, let so-and-so have their say, and then so my experience emotionally in the moment is that I am not engaged in the drama that is going on around me. However, if I spend about a second and a half thinking about, for me, it's my neck and my shoulders, then I will notice that my body is holding that energy. So obviously the energy of the situation has permeated my field to the point where it's actually physically impacting my body. So that's not great. Oh, there's my kitty. But it's not great when that happens, but it can be great to be able to see it, because once you see it, then you know what to do about it. So in that situation, I would notice I'd have the muscle tension, and I would willfully and mindfully relax those muscles and let my shoulders move back down, let that tension move out of my body, and then continue to let that tension move out of my field entirely. Meditation, and particularly visualization, I have found are very, very helpful tools in order to be able to do this. Sometimes I will run a visualization in my mind when I am meditating, and it takes different sort of images, it takes different paths at different times. But like, one of the ones that I've had that I've really enjoyed is I will imagine sort of sitting in myself, my body, sitting in a bubble, my aura, and that within that bubble I can see all sorts of dust just floating around. You know how sometimes when the sun comes through a window and you can see the dust mites in the air, sort of like that. I'll imagine all this dust, all of this information that is not me, that is in my field. And what I'll kind of do is I'll take a stick, kind of like what they use for cotton candy. Have you ever seen cotton candy be made, where they'll run the stick around the edges of the cotton candy maker and sort of collect and rotate up that cotton candy around it? I'll go through that process in my mind, just visualizing an energetic hand reaching in, my energetic hand reaching in around me and scooping up and twirling around all of that dust, those dust mites, all of that energy that isn't mine onto this cotton candy stick, and then moving it out of my space. Sometimes I will use the visualization of a wand of some sort, or a magnet of some sort, and because I'm nerdy and witchy, what I like to do is I like to imagine that it is a wand that is made out of hematite, which is a beautiful crystal and is also magnetic. So I will again just imagine, visualize being in this bubble in my aura and having all of this information move around me that I don't need and that's not mine, and I will imagine just moving that hematite wand and like little bits of iron to a magnet. Oh my goodness, having such a hard time getting the words out. I'll imagine that energy being attracted to that hematite wand, and then I will just move it again out of my space. And another thing that's important to remember is that when we remove things from our space, it's important that we refill with our own energy. And again, there's a lot of different visualizations that I like to use to accomplish this part of the task, but it's really important, because if you move other people's energy out of your space, but then you don't refill it with your own energy, then essentially you're leaving a void for either that same energy to pop right back in, or for some other energy of somebody else's to pop right back in. So it's really important to always make sure that you're sort of topping off your aura with your own energy. And again, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. I sometimes just like to imagine that I am sitting outside on a sunny day, and again, this is all just visualized in my memory, or in my mind, that I am sitting outside on the edge of a stream in a beam of sunlight. and that the water is helping to encourage the energy that's not mine to leave my space, and that the sun shining down above me is actually helping me replace the space around me with my own energy. So there you go. So there's some information about what is energetic hygiene, why it might be important, as well as some practical tips for improving your own energetic hygiene. If you found this interesting, I'd really love to hear about it. If you found any of these tips helpful, if you also do different tasks to maintain your own energetic hygiene, I'd love to hear what your skills are, what your visualizations are, what your go-tos are. So I think that's it. Until next time, do be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and please do take care.